Hello, this is Lexi at Cozy Tea Cafe over on Bookstagram, and today we're going to be summarizing A Tempest of Tea by Hafsah Faizal. This is the first book in a duology. Second book comes out September 23rd. This is just a reminder, if you are not familiar with these videos, they are going to be full of spoilers. This is an in-depth summary of the plot points from the beginning to the end of the book, so if you do not want spoilers, don't continue watching. So in this story, we have a world of humans and vampires, and our main character, Arthi, and her brother figure, Jin, are two criminals who run a tea shop called Spindrift that illegally serves blood to vampires after hours. The two meet with a vampire artist named Matteo Andoni to settle a debt, but it isn't common knowledge that this famous artist is a vampire. The existence of vampires used to be a secret before the mysterious half-vampire, the Wolf of White Roaring, brutalized the streets 20 years ago and was never caught. Vampires have been disappearing lately, and the humans are worried for their own lives if there is something out there that's able to kill vampires. Humans are turned into vampires by drinking vampire blood on the brink of death, but humans who are fed vampire blood while still alive will turn into half-vampires, which gives them the energy of both the living and of a vampire. Full vampires stop aging at the time they're turned, but half-vampires keep maturing at a slower pace. After hours, they're alerted that guards of the Ram are going to raid their tea room, and they quickly shift the room back into a normal tea establishment before the guards arrive. The guards don't find anything, and they make a comment about Spindrift being behind on rent payments. Before they ran Spindrift, it was a museum, and Arthi and Jin stole all of the museum contents and replaced them with items from White Roaring's richest homes. The museum then shut down, and no one wanted to rent after that because of a fear of some sort of curse. So they were able to go to the proprietor and strike a deal and open Spindrift. Jin and Arthi meet with their proprietor at Eden, a rival tea house, and ask why the Ram said they're facing eviction if they've never missed a payment in 5 years. The proprietor apologizes and says that they threatened his family and the shop won't be his to rent after 2 weeks, and Arthi tells the proprietor to leave town. Arthi comes home and sees a horned guard named Laith in her house, and he reveals that Spindrift will be brought to the ground in a fortnight, and he proposes an alliance. He says that the palace is in lockdown because a ledger was lost that could implicate the royals, and he thinks the Ram has gotten too powerful. He wants her to steal the ledger from the Ethereum, a heavily guarded vampire society that doesn't allow in outsiders, and use the ledger to take down the Ram and save Spindrift in the process. Arthi agrees as long as Laith assists her in the heist so she can keep him close in case he double-crosses her. We see in Jin's backstory that his family was wealthy and he was incredibly smart, but their family wasn't accepted because they were foreigners. One day, Jin came home to see his house burned down by the Ram, and Arthi was there to save him, and they became inseparable after that. Arthi tells Jin about the plan to break into the Ethereum, and they begin to assemble their crew. Miss Felicity Linden, otherwise known as the forger named Flick, is on house arrest after being caught forging and was disowned by her mother. Her mother is the head of the EJC trading company, and Flick is desperate to gain her approval again. The horned guard shows up to Flick's house and arrests her, and when she gets inside the car, she sees Jin. Flick used to forge for Jin and Arthi from time to time, and she developed a crush on him. Jin tells Flick that the horned guard was due to arrest her in a few days, and they plotted to have her arrested today instead. There will be an empty cell for her in the jail while she helps them complete the job, then she'll be smuggled back into the cell before her mother can get her released. Flick agrees, but plans to double-cross them to get a front-page story for her mother to get back in her good graces. Jin takes Flick to Spindrift, and she's served tea with a card tucked underneath that shows an address, 337 Alms Place, which is Matteo Andoni's address. Arthi, Jin, Laith, and Flick head to the address to recruit Matteo as their 5th crew member. Matteo reluctantly agrees to help them and says the Festival of Nights charity auction will be a good time to perform the heist because of the amount of people who will be there. He says that the Ethereum is on high alert because of the vampire disappearances, and says the only way to get in is with a coined marker that contains a unique set of numbers. If the numbers don't match, they'll be stabbed through the heart. Matteo says his coin is useless because his membership has lapsed and his appearance would cause a scene, but he agrees to help if Arthi can sneak him in too. Matteo provides a sketch of the Ethereum and shows 3 essential parts: the parlor that leads to the ballroom where the events are held, the right wing used for living spaces, and the left wing used for business. Arthi says Flick will forge the markers with new numerical identifiers, and they will sneak into the Ethereum's system to assign the new numbers, but they'll need to steal another marker first. Arthi plans to learn the secrets of an Ethereum member so she can blackmail them for their marker. Arthi reveals that they'll be stealing the ledger from Pen Arundel, the head of the Ethereum. Flick and Jin leave to get some writing samples from the Thorn sisters' house to perform the forgery, and they hear voices in the house and realize that Mateo lied to them about the house being empty at that time. They hear footsteps coming toward the room they're in, and Jin tells Flick to head into the next room and jump off the balcony. A vampire named Eleanor Thorn enters and threatens to kill Jin. Flick makes a noise to cause a distraction, then jumps out of the window while Jin escapes and follows her as bullets fly towards them. Jin jumps in front of Flick and is shot in the side. Arthi sees Laith sneaking around in alleys and she confronts him. They get close and nearly kiss, and Laith brushes her pistol, so Arthi grabs it and points it at him. The moment is obviously ruined, so they head to the Office of Public Works to meet with official Lombard to demand his Ethereum marker. Lombard alludes to Arthi punishing him in the past for stealing Public Works funds, but Arthi takes a calculated guess that he didn't stop stealing and blackmails him for his marker. It works, and he hands the marker over but says it won't work because he hasn't renewed his membership. Someone runs through the door and attacks Arthi while Laith sneaks in behind him and disarms the attacker. The attacker breaks free and chokes Laith, so Arthi grabs her pistol and it changes into a club so she can knock the attacker out. Laith unlocks the window and they jump out into a warehouse balcony as their attacker wakes up and pursues them. Arthi uses spilled gunpowder to create an explosion and blow their attacker back so they can escape. Flick takes Jin to Mateo's house to dress his wounds. When Jin sees Mateo, he grabs him and threatens to kill him for lying to them about the Thorn sisters. But Arthi and Laith show up in time and tell Jin that it's a holiday, meaning the bank that the Thorn sisters worked at was closed, and it was really just Jin's mistake. Tensions die down, and Jin and Mateo apologize to each other. Arthi and Laith talk alone, and he asks Arthi about her magical pistol. Her pistol can change into any weapon and never needs to be reloaded. It always has one bullet in the chamber, and it can kill anything, including vampires. Arthi reveals that her parents died, and Laith says his sister was killed retrieving an artifact for the king. He blames the king for her death, and he wants to find the artifact to kill the king with as revenge. Arthi thinks about her adopted family she ran away from, but doesn't mention this to Laith. Arthi goes to see Jin to come clean about her adopted family, but sees that he's busy with Flick and doesn't think it's the right time. Flick goes to the old foundry that used to help her with forgeries and asks Rays for his help again. He's angry with Flick and says that he lost a finger for helping her after she was caught, and says that he won't help her again. Him and his associate try to attack Flick, and Jin shows up and threatens them and breaks the associate's knuckles and says that Flick is under their protection now. The day before the Festival of Night, Arthi finds Laith on top of the old roaring tower, scoping out the Ethereum. Arthi proposes they shoot the Ethereum guard with a special bullet that knocks out vampires for at least 10 minutes, then they'll wrap him in barbed wire to keep him contained and quiet. They hear something on the roof and hide in a small space together, and Arthi feels an attraction to Laith that she tries to ignore. The crew meets to begin the heist, and Arthi approaches a guard named Barclay and threatens to turn him in for his illegal activities if he doesn't let her in. Arthi reveals that she knows Barclay purchases poison for Madame Mabel to use in her cosmetics, and he lets her in and she steals his gun. Jin is dreading calling in a favor from Rose Ashby, a member of a high-ranking vampire family whom he's killed for before. The Ashby family was human, and when their father was turned, he turned the rest of his family so they could stay together. Jin meets with Rose, and she brings him into the Ethereum as her human date for the auction. Jin thanks Rose for getting him in, and she thanks him in return, and it's revealed that Jin killed her brother before he could turn into a vampire on Rose's request. Flick is waiting outside the Ethereum with the expired marker, while Jin is inside tampering with the chutes that check the markers so he can stop the marker from returning. Arthi and Laith are hidden, waiting to shoot the guard with the poisoned bullet at the right time so Flick can get in and out of the marker archives. Flick sticks her coin into the slot, and it comes back with something green on it, and she sees a faint red below it and realizes that Jin must have intercepted the coin and rubbed the green on it to cover the rejection. Arthi goes rogue instead of shooting the guard, and she approaches and puts her expired coin into the slot, and it comes back yellow, which makes the guard investigate her while Flick sneaks into the archive room. The guard frisks Arthi, then escorts her away. Inside the archives, Flick sees the marker log is locked with a series of levers that can only be opened when an exact weight is applied to a scale. Flick sees Lath's kitten had followed her in, and she puts her lighter on the plate, and the log unlocks. Flick scribbles down the marker numbers onto the identifier log, and when she's done, she exits and runs into Eleanor Thorne and makes an excuse about looking for the bathroom. Mateo creates a distraction while Lath climbs up the mezzanine. Meanwhile, Arthi is escorted to a secure area of the prison, and we see that she knows the guard named Theo and planned this ahead of time to gain access to this restricted area. Arthi heads down a corridor into a locked room and sees Mateo. Mateo reveals that Penn Arundel was there for him when he was first turned and was told a lot about Arthi, and she realizes that Penn is who Mateo wanted to get into the Ethereum to see. Penn hasn't been seen outside of the Ethereum for weeks, and Mateo became worried about him and knew that Penn would want Arthi to know if something happened to him. So he racked up a debt at Spindrift on purpose so Arthi would go to his house and confront him. Earlier, Mateo told Jin to look out for a man bringing a specific art piece to the auction and instructed him to steal 3 brass keys from him. Jin sees the man, a vampire named Siddharth, and pickpockets the keys and puts a fake set in its place. Jin hands the keys off to Lath and the auction starts. Lath finds Arthi and they head to Penn's office and unlock a secret door that leads to a vault. They find the ledger on the desk and Arthi notices a lever under that desk. They hear vampires rattling the door, and Lath tells her to get behind him so he can protect her, but she sneaks into the vault and closes herself inside as the vampires enter the room, leaving Lath to fend for himself. Inside the vault, she pulls the real ledger out, and we see that she put a fake on the desk for Lath to find. She feels bad for betraying Lath, but knows that it was either him or her who had to take the fall, even though he looks heartbroken. After Lath is taken out, Flick, Jin, Mateo, and Penn enter the room, and Penn greets Arthi as his daughter. Jin looks betrayed that Arthi never told him about Penn being her adopted father, and Arthi opens the ledger and sees that the EJC is exporting starved vampires as weapons. Flick is shocked that her mother, the head of the EJC, could be a part of something like this, and Penn tells his story. Penn's mother was an adventurer, and they journeyed to a land of enchantment, but the magic couldn't be taken off the land unless it was imbued into an artifact. His mother and him boarded a ship with immortal elves, and when they landed in White Roaring, his mother became sick and died. The elves used a broken artifact, claiming it would still work, and the nearby corpses in the graveyard came back to life as mindless, hungry creatures, and his mother was one of them. While he was distracted by his mother attacking him, another corpse attacked him, and he drank blood during the attack somehow, and he awoke as a vampire with the power to create the illusion of pain with only his mind. When the Wolf of White Roaring went on a rampage, Penn was asked to establish the Ethereum and create rules. But the Wolf of White Roaring attacks were actually fabricated by the Ram to control the chaos and make them appear as the heroes. The Ram has been injecting vampires with silver so they can be contained and shipped off to war. Penn won't let Arthi have the ledger because he needs it for his case against the Ram. Penn throws Jin a clove rock, and he has a realization that Penn is the weekly visitor his parents had who argued with his dad the day before their death. Jin's parents were the scientists that developed the injection that immobilizes vampires, and they were killed because of it. Arthi heads home and sees a carriage following her. She confronts the person in the carriage, and it's a member of the Ram, asking for the ledger in exchange for keeping Spindrift open. Arthi leaves, knowing that as long as the Ram was around, Spindrift wouldn't be truly safe. Flick confronts her mom about the vampire exports, and she doesn't deny it, which makes Flick realize that her mother wasn't who she thought she was and isn't willing to sacrifice her friends for her approval anymore. Arthi goes to Spindrift and warns everyone to get out because the Ram knows they're not giving over the ledger. As they're leaving, a rival gang, the Plotters, show up and attack them. Arthi is wounded and Spindrift is set on fire and burned to the ground. Jin goes back into Spindrift for Arthi and carries her out, and Flick finds them and takes them to the Ethereum. Arthi wakes up in the Ethereum and sees Lath, and he tells her that the crew is safe and forgives her for her betrayal. He tells her that he knows what she is and has known since he first met her. She's a vampire. We learn that when Arthi was a girl, her mother took her to a healer for shelter as Atenians attacked, and the healer fed Arthi his blood and turned her into a vampire to save her from the attack, but she was only turned into a half-vampire because she wasn't close to death when she fed on his blood. Atenian ships came shortly after and killed all of her people. She ended up on a boat and was so starved at the time that she drank everyone on the boat dry. When she landed in White Roaring, she found Penn's mansion and he took her in. Leith tells Arthie to drink from him, and she gives in and drinks blood for the first time since she was a child, and she feels him reaching for her pistol. She finally realizes that her pistol is the artifact that he's been searching for to avenge his sister, and he never intended to take down the ram. She threatens Leith and tells him to leave before she kills him. Arthie runs into Matteo, and she realizes that he knew she was a vampire. She tells Matteo to get everyone to Penn's office and to get the presses. Flick goes back to her mother's manor and tells her to meet at the Ethereum Hall to get her cover story. Jin and Flick prepare for the ambush with the press, and they kiss. When the ram sweeps into the hall, Flick sees her mother's eyes among them. Arthie realizes that her plan has gone wrong because she meant to ambush the ram with the press, but if Lady Linden is among the ram, she would have tipped them off. Masked men enter the hall and start killing all of the press, and Leith shows up and begins fighting with Arthie for the pistol. Penn saves Arthie and is about to go for Leith's throat when Jin hears Arthie's pistol go off, and he runs for her because he knows she wouldn't shoot it herself. Penn was shot by Leith using the pistol, and he dies as Arthie holds him. Jin is shot in the heart by the ram, and Arthie feeds him her blood to save him, and he smells coconut on her, which reminds him of the day that they met. Jin offered Arthie a coconut, not knowing that she was a starving vampire, and it changed Arthie's life because she realized she could survive on coconut water instead of blood. Arthie takes Penn's revolver and runs to Leith's apartment, and she sees him with her pistol in his hands. Leith points the pistol at Arthie, and she shoots him with the gun, but she looks down and sees that he shot her through the heart as well. In the last chapter, the unnamed Wolf of White Roaring finds Arthie bleeding in the apartment and takes her away. So that's where the story ends. Again, the next book comes out September 23rd, I believe. And if there are any other books you'd like me to summarize, just leave me a comment below. And thank you for watching.